Development matters, development matters. If for you, if for me, development matters, development matters.
Hello and welcome to Development Matters. On the program today,
it's not about me, it's about Liberia.
We want to move forward. We want to solve our own problems.
We feature a debate organized as part of Black History Month at the American Embassy in Monrovia on the educational philosophies of two great American civil rights leaders, Booker T. Washington, who emphasized vocational and industrial education for blacks, and W.E.B. Dubois, who stressed liberal education for African Americans. You will hear young Liberians debate the question, which one of those educational philosophies is more relevant to Liberia today?
We must first understand the social and economic situation of Liberia and Liberians.
Also on the program, we continue our series on young Liberian entrepreneurs who are really making a difference.
Now we take these palm kernels, buy them from smallholders.
Then in our Historicana segment, we look at the oldest degree-granting institution in West Africa, Liberia College, now the University of Liberia. But we begin with our debate on the educational philosophies of W.E.B. Dubois and Booker T. Washington, which is more relevant to Liberia today. As we now join our moderator.
The theme of today's debate is In Liberia Today. The educational ideology of Booker T. Washington is more relevant to Liberia's development than that of W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, on the affirmative for that is student Sata F. Sharif, she's from the Stella Maris Polytechnic, followed by John Singwe, also from the University of Liberia, and Yuben A. Wilsoter from the Mother Patton's College of Health Sciences. Arguing the negative from the proposition is student S. Morris Masale from the African Methodist Episcopal University, followed by Nathan Bealey, also of the African Methodist Episcopal University, and Fadela Shabani from the J.W. Harris Memorial High School. So, with that, we're going to start the debate with our introductory argument from the affirmative team. Ms. Sata F. Sharif, you have 5 minutes.
Resolved. In Liberia today, Booker T. Washington educational ideology is more relevant than W.E.B. Du Bois. We as a team believe that Booker T. Washington educational ideology is more relevant now. If we were to domesticate Booker T. Washington educational ideology in Liberia, we must first understand the social and economic situation of Liberia and Liberians. We believe as a team that Liberia problem is not simply the racial discrimination in the 18th and the 1900s of the United States of America. But today, Liberia problem is with the illiteracy rate, our unemployment rate, poverty. If you look at statistics, Liberia suffers about 64% of unemployment rate. We have about 54% of our people living in poverty, with 64% below the poverty line. We have about 47.6% illiteracy rate in Liberia. My team and I do believe that another issue when you must compare Booker T. Washington ideology to Liberia present day reality, if you look at the number of school enrollment and retention in schools, school enrollment and retention is still a national issue in Liberia. Today, thousands and hundreds of graduates from the University of Liberia, Cottington University, Stella Maris Polytechnic, and other institutions of higher learning are still sitting at home and awaiting God's intervention for employment opportunities. How then can we say W.E.B. Dubois educational ideology is more relevant when people of higher education are still searching job opportunities. How? How is that even possible? When our illiteracy rate is still 47.6%, we as a nation do not need higher education alone to reduce poverty, illiteracy, unemployment, and other issues that are crippling the Liberian society. We need vocational industrial education in Liberia to integrate a huge number of Zocos, those we call at-risk youth. We need industrial education, and we must invite everyone at the developmental agenda and the table of discussion for Liberia. Thank you very much.
We now take the introductory argument from the negative. S. Morris Masali, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. The United States of America in which Mr. Washington lived is not Liberia today. Mr. Washington's America was an America in which the black people had no right. They had limited access to education and job opportunity, even with highest academic qualification. So back in the 1900s, it made sense for Mr. Washington to emphasize that black people acquire technical vocational education so that they can sustain themselves. Even a black person by then with a doctorate degree couldn't get a job. So why would you pursue a doctorate degree when it will be of no use to you? Let me ask you, is that the situation in Liberia today? No. In Liberia, we have equal access to education. We are not facing racial discrimination. So we cannot use the ideology applied in the 1900s to solve today's bigger problems. There are problems that vocational education cannot solve. There has to be a yardstick on which we can distinguish people. Those who solve bigger problems has to be given priority. The more bigger problem solvers we have, the lesser our problems becomes. What are our problems today that I am saying vocational education cannot solve? In 2014, we were faced with an Ebola problem. We lost hundreds of people, thousands of people died. They died because our country did not have the capacity in our health sector, the liberal and technical education needed to fight the Ebola. As a result, we lost hundreds of people. According to Liberia's Medical and Dental Council, there are 298 medical doctors in Liberia providing services to 4.7 million people. If you break that into math, it means we have 15,772 patients to a single doctor. Have we made progress? We need a more liberalized education and the knowledge in science and technology to bear the lives that are needed to fight these diseases. Can a vocational education provide a solution to such a problem? No. Not only that, we have problem with infrastructure development. Is it not shameful that we must sit as a nation and import engineers from China to come and build our roads? When we have the same mental capacity they have, it means that we must invest more into technical education at college level, which Dr. Dubois emphasized. I am not saying vocational education is not important, but liberalized education is more important because they provide solutions to a bigger problem. Thank you.
Now, the next stage is rebuttals. And for the affirmative, we have Johnson.
Our distinguished audience, we see no need for today's debate because our opponent acknowledged the fact that we need more technical vocational education. Right? But to sustain the argument of my brilliant and eloquent presenter, we want to say firstly that no one will be very inhuman to say this country we don't need doctors. But liberal arts and science education is not only producing doctors. There are people today graduating from the University of Liberia, the Cathedral University, the Stella Marie Polytechnics with degrees in English, history, sociology. Do we need more of a sociologist or linguists or literati to solve our developmental problems, then we need more carpenter or plumber. This is why my teammates and I subscribe to the idea of Mr. Booker T. Washington. We are saying today, we are not in no way disagreeing that Dubois' ideas was not the right idea, but we are saying more relevant to our problems today is the idea of Booker T. Washington. It's statistics to prove to you how many of Liberians today are prepared for university education. About 300,000 students took the University of Liberia entrance, and you had all of them failing. Our president came out and said the education system of our country is a mess. Why don't we provide an alternative for them? Why don't we invest as a country in the vocational, technical, industrial education? Why don't we integrate those we call the Zocos? Why don't we bring those we think live in the rural areas, provide them vocational education so that they can contribute to nation building? Why don't we make them productive citizens and give them economic independence? Why don't we make these people industrious? We are saying today that the idea of Mr. Washington, the problem of America in the 1800s and 1900s, may not be the problem of Liberia today, but there are problems that are confronting us today that Mr. Washington provided answer for, that his ideology can now also provide answer for today. And what are some of the problems? Unemployment rates that have graduated from the University of Liberia are employed. How many of them? 1,000 just graduated, and I met a brother sitting and say, I'm still doing fast and prayer for me to be employed. Why can't we invest in the vocational education so that when this brother leaves the university, he becomes industrial. He starts doing something now and helping his family. He stops being a liability to society and being a help and creating jobs for others. This is the idea we are pushing here today. We have tried this issue of laborers, art, and sciences. From the inception of our country, our people are illiterate, they are unemployed. Why don't we change our thinking and put an end to this primitive traits of our opponents here today? Why don't we invest in this new idea of Mr. Washington, vocational education for Liberia? Thank you.
Thank you, John. We'll move on to the negative. We have Nathan Billy for rebuttals.
Well, thank you very much. Well, let me start by saying this. It's somehow out of order to accept an idea of the 19th century and apply it to a 21st century time of high-level competition. I say this to say the idea of Booker T. Washington of the 19th and 20th centuries is an idea that is designed to solve problems of little kinds. Today, the idea of W.E.B. Dubois is an idea that is intended to solve problems of bigger kinds. And you will all agree with me that Liberia is facing serious problems of bigger kinds. Therefore, what ideology do we need to apply to solve these problems? An ideology of the 18th and 19th century that will only solve a problem, or an ideology of W.E.B. Du Bois that will solve problems? Honorable audience, unemployment was argued by the opposing team that the only way we can solve unemployment is by having people going into industrial areas or looking at vocational and technical education. We disagree on this point. The point of disagreement here is this. We don't need a carpenter or a masoner come on to solve unemployment on a general level. Do you know who we need? We need well-rounded leaders who study higher education, which is in the liberal arts and the sciences, for sound economic and political decision-making that will boom our economy in 10 to 15 years from now. We don't need a carpenter or masoner to do that, but we need people of sound minds who have well-rounded liberal arts education and in the sciences. They also argue that Liberia has 47.6 illiteracy rate at a percentage. We agree. How can you say you don't need an English instructor or a PhD holder to do it with illiteracy? It is very contradictory and ironical. We need people from the liberal arts who have a degree in English and science to write books, to have sound policies for teacher training and educational reform in order to decrease our illiteracy rate. We don't need a carpenter again. We don't need a masoner again. They also argue that we face a healthcare delivery problem. Do you need a carpenter or somebody who only studied 2 years vocational education? You need pathologists. Come on, you need forensic scientists. In terms of competition on a grand scale, we must apply problem solving, research, and dealing with issues from a bigger level as applied by W.E.B. Dubois' ideology of higher education, which is liberal arts and the science. Thank you very much.
This debate is interesting. Now we are about to hear from our concluders. So for the affirmative, you, Bennett Wilson, 3 minutes.
We can definitely agree with an idea of the 18th and 19th centuries to solve problems of this 21st century if the situations that surround that idea still exist today. Booker T. Washington's ideology is more relevant in Liberia today because it helps build up a person's capacity in terms of economic independence, industriousness, self-help, and entrepreneurship. Now, we have been pursuing liberal education all through, and look at what we have, a 47.6% illiteracy rate. This clearly implies that liberal education will not solve the problems of Liberia now. The question is, how do we solve these problems? The problem of unemployment, problems of illiteracy, and the problems of poverty. Now, linking Washington's idea with Liberia's current situation in order for you to see its relevance. Back then, when Washington proposed the pursuit of technical and vocational training, not many African Americans had the opportunity to pursue liberal education. Same as today, not every Liberian had the funding to cover the cost of a liberal education. Universities that provide liberal education are too expensive. For instance, the University of Liberia, students protest day in, day out because the tuitions are so high and they want it reduced because they cannot afford it. But compare that to technical training institutes, the BWI, LOIC, MVTC. It is not that expensive and it's not too time consuming. We believe that Booker T. Washington's ideology is a very effective remedy to solve Liberia's problem of unemployment, of poverty. We want Washington's idea because we want a stronger economy. We want to build our country, which is why my team believes that Washington's ideology is more relevant in Liberia today than that of W.E.B. Dubois. Thank you.
On argument from the negative, Fadela Shabani, 3 minutes.
Honorable audience, our problems are these. We have problems with managing the educational sector, the health sector. We have problems with roads, electricity, you name it. Liberia has big problems. Do we need vocational training institutes to solve these problems? Obviously, the answer is no. You keep saying this, we have 64% unemployment rate. The question is, by going to vocational training institutes, will they automatically have jobs? Will it automatically provide job opportunities? Again, the answer is no. Ladies and gentlemen, we have big problems. We need big minds that discuss big issues and solve big problems. We need to encourage people to do in-depth research and solve the problems of our society. We're not saying that we don't need vocational training institutes, but here's the thing, right? These people solve a problem, but people who have PhDs, they solve the problem. We need people that solve the problem instead of people that solve a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Marley said this: emancipate yourselves from mental slavery, because none but yourselves can free your minds. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not limit ourselves. Let's get out there. Let's look beyond our shoulders. Let's move beyond borders. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 21st century. Welcome to the era where we have big problems. Welcome to the time where we not limit ourselves. Welcome to the time where we solve our own problems instead of blaming it on others. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 21st century. Thank you.
Okay, so we can take three questions.
I actually want to ask the affirmative team, is anyone there in Booker Washington Institute or the LOIC or whatever AA degree? Because I assume every one of you here, there, are already doing university degrees. So can you answer that question, please?
I'm going to leave the university speaking a lot of grammars, and you're going to see my hand work. So, it's not about me. It's about Liberia. This is why we are saying give them an alternative for them to be educated. Give them a choice to make, and that choice is vocational education. Thank you.
Liberia has William Aratobo Jr., who served as president of the World BAFTA. We have Mother Emmett Johnson, a Harvard graduate. How can you compare the leadership of those Liberians to that the leadership of a 7th grade student and from the Gambia who assumed leadership at the time when Gambia do not have a university and they promoted vocational training?
Why won't Gambia emphasize vocational training if they can use a 7th grader as their president? Do you think they'll look for PhD holders? No. Obviously not. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the problem here. We don't want to keep comparing ourselves with people who make the same mistakes. We want to look ahead. We want to move forward. We want to solve our own problems. We don't want to keep importing doctors and engineers. We need Liberians controlling Liberia. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot afford to make the same mistake Gambia made. Our president is not a 7th grader. So please do not compare our country to someone who made a 7th grader their president. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Liberia. And big problems we have, big problems we must solve. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And to our debaters, we'd like to say a big thank you. This is how we come to the end of today's competition on Let's Debate It. We'll join you next time on Development Matters. I've been your moderator, Caroline Amma.
This is Development Matters. We'll be back in just a moment.
I talking about my unborn future. No matter what you ask, let my message will reach you. Corruption killing all, we not satisfied.
Welcome back to Development Matters, as we now profile Mahmud Johnson, a young Liberian entrepreneur who is breaking new ground.
I'm the founder of J-Palm Liberia. We are an oil palm processing business, and the way we like to think of ourselves is we are transforming waste into wealth, because we focus mostly on palm kernels, and in Liberia, for the most part, people in the past used to see palm kernels as waste product. And so now we take these palm kernels, buy them from smallholders, and then we use them to create a range of products. So I mean, most people have probably heard about our flagship product, Kernel Fresh, which is organic moisturizer for skin and hair. We're working on soaps, and we're also working on some biomass projects, because the palm kernel shells actually have very significant biomass potential. So we serve it.
This is Development Matters. We'll be back in just a moment.
I talking about my unborn future. No matter what you ask, let my message will reach you. Corruption killing all, we not satisfied.
Welcome back to Development Matters. And now for Historicana, we look at the founding and early days of Liberia College, now the University of Liberia.
Inaugurated in January 1862 with the motto Lux in Tenebris, Light in Darkness, Liberia College is the oldest degree-granting institution in West Africa. Its first president, also the first president of Liberia, was Joseph Jenkins Roberts, who headed the college from 1862 until 1876. All of the early professors of Liberia College were Liberians. 7 men made up the first class of Liberia College, but by 1881, under the presidency of Edward Wilmot Blyden, Liberia College began enrolling women in its preparatory department. Many of our early leaders were educated at Liberia College. They include Hilary Richard Wright Johnson, Joseph James Cheeseman, Arthur Barkley, Daniel E. Harward, Edwin Barkley, among others. In 1951, Liberia College became the University of Liberia, and in 1978, it had Mary Antoinette Brown Sherman as its president, making her just about the first woman to head a major institution of higher learning in Africa. Dr. Sherman herself was a graduate of Liberia College. Like her father, Louis Arthur Grimes, deemed by many to be Liberia's greatest Chief Justice, after whom the law school at the University of Liberia is named. Today, from its very humble beginnings, with a first class of only 7 men, Liberia College has grown into a full-fledged university with 6 colleges and graduates thousands of students yearly who are making their mark in helping to build a better Liberia.
This is Development Matters, and now we get a letter from the Diaspora.
Dear Liberia, my name is Emmett Fiawoo, Sr., the first organizing president of the Booker Washington Institute Alumni Association in the United States. And our purpose for establishing this organization is purposely to assist Liberians. After the war, there was nothing on campus, and because of that, we established this organization so that we can give back to Liberia. Since we're in the diaspora of America and we have the plenty and we can give back. After this organization was established, we're fortunate to get a grant from the American government to revitalize the campus. And after our revitalization of the campus, the principal came to the United States to our convention and gave us the status of who all graduated at the time and showed us a video of how the graduation went on. And want to be grateful for that because every year we give back to BWI because we want to make sure that our brothers and sisters get a better education for Liberia to become a better nation in the world.
Well, that's our program for today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on another edition of the program. So long, everybody.
Development matters, development matters. If for you, if for me, development matters.